Did you guys hear about this YouTuber who was kidnapped in Haiti and held for ransom? On March 14th, Addison Malouf, also known as Your Fellow Arab on YouTube, was kidnapped in Haiti after he traveled there to interview one of the most notorious gang leaders who goes by the name Barbecue. He's pretty much known for traveling to the most dangerous parts of the world and documenting his experiences. But when he arrived to Haiti, he stayed in this empty hotel and planned to drive 6 hours to the city of Port-au-Prince, where the streets are completely ran by gangs. This is the last video he took before he was taken by a gang and was held for a $600,000 ransom.
We leave right now. We'll get there while it's dark. It's about a 6-hour road trip. We'll get there while it's dark, and that place is completely run by gangs.
It's so dangerous to go to Haiti right now, and the fact that this guy went for a YouTube video is pretty crazy. But apparently, he was released yesterday, and then he posted this on his Instagram story saying that he was okay.
This grandmother threw her 2-year-old granddaughter because she disliked her son-in-law. Fall of 2010, 50-year-old Carmela de la Rosa lived in Fairfax, Virginia with her husband and her son. She also had a daughter named Kat, and Kat was married to James Odddock, and they had a daughter who was 2 years old named Angelina. On the night of November 29th, Carmela went with her husband, children, and granddaughter to the largest shopping center in Virginia, which was the Tyson Corner. They all had dinner together, and once they were done, they walked over to this pedestrian bridge that was on the 6th floor, and this connected the shopping center to the parking lot. At that time, Carmela was holding Angelina in her arms. As they were passing through the bridge, everyone was in front of Carmela, and she stopped, leaned over the railing, and threw Angelina 45 meters down. Angelina was then taken to the hospital, but unfortunately died a few hours later. Police ended up interrogating Carmela, and that's when she admitted that she deliberately threw her granddaughter over that bridge. They had asked her why she did this, and she stated that at that moment she had just lost her mind. Carmela then stated that at that moment when she threw her, she thought about her son-in-law, who she deeply hated for getting her daughter pregnant before marriage. In September of 2011, Carmela went to trial, and her lawyer stated that she had mental problems and that she was taking medication for it at that time. The jury found Carmela guilty of first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to a max sentence of 35 years in prison.
This is currently the most terrifying video on the dark web. It was published anonymously, so we don't have any more information. But the ending will call everything into question.
Well, terrible update after a 12-year-old girl and two 13-year-old girls were arrested in Washington, D.C. for the brutal attack of a 64-year-old disabled man in 2023. And I do want to warn you guys that these details are very hard to listen to. According to the Washington Post, the 3 young girls were allegedly caught on camera carrying out what detectives described as the horrific October 17th, 2023 murder of Reggie Brown. The graphic minute-long cell phone video showed a group of 5 girls chasing Brown into an alley just before 1 a.m. And you guys, this is where the story just is so heartbreaking. As Brown tried to climb up a chain fence, the girls pulled him down and stomped his head into the concrete pavement. And not only that, detectives say they pulled his pants down around his ankles, removed his belt, and then beat him with it. And this story gets even worse. As Brown laid on the ground, the girls became happy. They were laughing and chatting about what happened. One of the girls saying, quote, "He's leaking," referring to Brown bleeding. The 3 girls were arrested on Friday. They were charged with first and second-degree murder in Brown's death. And attorneys for the 3 pleaded not guilty to the charges.
Do you guys remember the case of Lacey Fletcher, the woman who melted into her couch? Well, the people responsible for this have been sentenced. But let me remind you guys a little bit about 36-year-old Lacey. In 2022, she was found deceased on her family's couch, and apparently she sat there for 12 years without moving. So how exactly does that happen? Well, Lacey had severe autism and she was nonverbal, so she solely depended on her parents as her caregiver. But after years of neglect, she weighed less than 100 pounds. She was found covered in maggots at her own waist. And again, this is how the couch looked like when they found Lacey deceased. Lacey's cause of death was acute medical neglect, and ultimately her parents, Sheila and Clay Fletcher, were each sentenced this month to 40 years, but will only be serving 20 years in prison. Now, what's outrageous is that her parents, who went from this to this, testified that their daughter refused any medical attention. How can someone who couldn't communicate and completely relied on them refuse medical attention? A 36-year-old weighing less than 100 pounds. Let that sink in. This tragedy could have been prevented. There is no excuse.
You ever see a legless lizard? Look me dead in the eyes and say, that's a face that says, I'm happy to be on this earth. He's not happy to be here. He didn't ask for this.
Now I get you. I feel you. I do. Legless lizards, terrible way to live. I can give you 3 animals that got screwed even worse. Number 1, the Luna moth. You want to know why? They don't have a mouth. They don't have a matter of fact, the worst part is it's not even like they're born without one. The caterpillars do, but once they reach their final form, nature just nerfs them for no reason, completely unprovoked, which obviously means they can't eat. All they have is whatever they stored as caterpillars. Once that runs out, so does their free trial to living. Basically, fresh out of the cocoon, they get about a week to date, mate, and procreate before they go from a permanent fast to part of the past. No Ramadan. They also don't have a digestive system, so they don't even get hungry. They just get more and more tired before they eventually get kicked off the mortal coil. Number 2 are hyenas, because that is a female, and you can probably see where this is going. They have a pseudophallus they have to push pups out of, and just letting you know, it's a jihad for both parties. Apparently, it's like an anti-grape defense, no fruit, so a female can flesh out the baby batter of an undesirable. Think of ducks having maize like vajangas. But with hyenas, not only do a good number of cubs suffocate to death while being born, a lot of first-time mothers get torn up so bad they bleed to a flat line. Damn, double homicide. 3 is the Barbarossa for one reason and one reason only. This picture's real. It's a wild pig found in Indonesia with tusks that can grow through its mouth. Sometimes they keep growing and give the struggle swine a DIY lobotomy. Worst part is, it's like pig Parkinson's. By the time the teeth turn on them, they're old enough to have passed off the generational jihad to its children, which means not even evolution can save them. The more you know.
So you know the woman who left her 16-month-old daughter alone while she went on a 10-day vacation on the beach and all this fun stuff to come home to her daughter unresponsive, because obviously the baby's been home alone for the last 10 days and her daughter ends up being pronounced dead and the baby died from being dehydrated and malnourished. Well, she got sentenced to life in prison without parole, and she had the nerve to say that her daughter and God forgive her. Like, be for real. I hate when people try to do that shit. Like, no, your baby and God do not forgive you for going on a 10-day long vacation and leaving your baby at home in a playpen. Like, you can say whatever you want to make yourself feel better, but what you did was so horrifically wrong. It's just disgusting. I hate that shit.
My wife just shot me. Please.
Okay, where are you shot at?
My arm.
Okay. How old are you?
Bailey, stop! I'm 25. I'm an off-duty police officer. I'm locked in the basement. She's shooting through the door. Please help me.
Okay. Stay on the phone with me. I've got help coming.
She's going to kill me. She already shot me through the door.
She shot you through the door?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm bleeding out all over the place.
Do you have something, a belt, a shirt, something that you can tie around that, like a tourniquet?
I don't. I
something.
Really
do you have a shirt on? Do you have a pair of pants? Whatever you have, I need you to take it off and tie it tight. Right where you in bed, okay?
Please, please, please. Please, I will stay with you. Please, I will stay with you. Please, please, I will stay with you. I will stay with you.
Sir?
If this doesn't disturb you, I don't know what will. 2 weeks ago, a 15-year-old in Utah contacted the police and claimed that their own parents had been assaulting them for over a year. So the identity of the victims and the perpetrator have been concealed for now, but this is what we know. Apparently, about a year ago, the parents of the victim found that their child had been Snapchatting and engaging with chats with strangers online, and that these chats with strangers had been graphic, if you know what I mean. These two parents then decided that it would be safer if they engaged in these graphic acts with their own daughter instead. This led to 1.5 years of abuse by the victim's stepfather, abuse that her mother allegedly joined in on. When the victim's stepfather was arrested, he admitted right away that he had been engaging in these acts with his daughter. The stepfather also admitted to the police that he and his wife went out and bought toys to use on their daughter. It seems as if the victim's mother and father felt like they needed to show their daughter how to use these devices, and so they did. So the suspects are currently being held in jail because they have 4 more children together. This time they are their biological children. And that's the reason why they're being held, because the authorities believe that these two parents may be a significant threat to their own kids. Now, we talk about stuff like this all the time on my TikTok, whether it's murder stories, stories about pedophiles, all types of true crime. And this is just one of those stories that I came across that truly disturbs me to my core. These were 2 normal-seeming parents from Utah. They probably had friends and family that loved and respected them up until they were caught. And it goes to show that you really just don't know anybody. And I'm sure that as more and more details are revealed from this story, it's going to get even more disturbing.
2210 F1 833, State of Indiana versus John Anderson. Ms. Anderson, for the record, would you state your full name, please?
Yes, I am Princess Califia Hatan Tupac II, representing the entity Dejon Anderson.
You're known as Dejon Anderson?
I'm representing the entity as Dejon Anderson.
Your date of birth?
My date of birth is February 2nd, 1961.
That would make you how old?
That'll make me 63 years old.
And the last 4 digits, your social security number?
I do not have a social security number. I have a declaration of nationality underneath the Ouachita Moors of the Indigenous People of the United Nations, Chapter 21593.
What's your address?
My address is
Do you have a good contact telephone number?
I don't know my contact number by heart. I believe it's.
Are you under the influence of any drugs, including alcohol, today?
No, I'm not.
You read and understand the English language?
Yes, I do.
If I say something you don't understand, will you let me know?
I will most definitely will.
Ms. Anderson. Officer Busick, who's investigated this, looked for you for the past 2 years, and Prosecutor Hunt have charged you with 3 counts of criminal conduct. Count 1 is murder as a felony. Would indicate that between April the 10th, 2022, and April the 16th, 2022, in Washington County, state of Indiana.
Hot take, not gonna apologize for it. 1v1, a Wolverine would whoop a honey badger's ass. Streets made this aggressive bowl cut the face of Black Air Force energy. Old time the Wolverine's the CEO of Cell Block D tendencies. First of all, they're more than capable of hunting for themselves, but some dudes can't be bothered to get their own bread. Instead, they gotta steal from the baker. And by baker, I mean they'll tax animals like wolves, cougars, even bears. Let me remind you, they're about the size of a medium dog, yet the crackhead courage can have an overgrown canyon cat backpedaling. And you thought honey badgers were on timing. And they are, but Wolverines, where else are you gonna find a war weasel 2v1ing a pair of wolves? But don't get it twisted, they can hunt, and they are very good at it. They've been known to murk moose by either going after one that's already injured or one stuck in the snow, since felony ferret's like a psychopath with snowshoes. And they'll track you down and run your fade like John Wick. This reindeer was injured and likely bleeding, so the travel-sized bear followed it and delivered smoke directly to the face like a cigarette. They've also been known to eat porcupines, or at least die trying. And you can even find a story of a Wolverine packing up a polar bear. Yeah, it was at a zoo, but that's still a fat W. Wolverines have this really bad habit of whenever they find something that doesn't belong to them, they'll immediately soak it with the smell of death, strong enough to make you cry fresh from its brown eye. A smell so offensive they've been nicknamed Skunk Bear. There have been stories of them breaking into cabins, blowing up the place like a truck stop bathroom, and walking out with like a sock or something. Almost forgot, this walking garbage disposal has rotated molars in the back of its mouth, meaning they can chew through solid bone and frozen meat. I'm sorry, but a motivated skunk monkey is absolutely folding an Oreo-coated temper tantrum, but that's just me.
Sundays after church, when we all just clean through the leftovers, it's like the highlight of my week. I love it so much.
It is. Mom doesn't get mad at us for eating anything.
That and the kids just open up. Like, everyone's pretty relaxed.
The husband of a popular social media influencer has been charged over the alleged murder of his own mother. Andre Zachary Rebello is in police custody after being charged with 1 count of murder dating back to May 2020, when the body of his mum was found in a multi-million-dollar home in Perth. The cryptocurrency dealer and business manager is married to model Gracie Piscopo, who has over 1 million Instagram followers. Rebello fronted court on Tuesday and is also facing 35 fraud charges, which allegedly occurred in the months following his mother's death. The alleged offences stem from May to July 2020 and include forgery and attempts to gain a benefit by fraud. Rebello has pleaded not guilty to the alleged financial claims and will face a trial over that matter in December next year. Rebello has not entered a plea on the murder charge and will face court later this year. Andre and Gracie have been dating for 8 years and share a 3-year-old son named Romeo. Gracie's social media accounts were once flooded with photos of her and Rebello, but she has been noticeably absent for most of the past year. Rebello did, however, feature in a video on Miss Piscopo's YouTube account in September. Rebello will face court again on December 21st.
Bryant dropped his guard. He thought they'd stopped recording.
I don't find that a very funny statement at all, mate, to be quite honest. Should have put that on recording. I'm still recording at this present stage, so that is on recording.
If you think the criminal in the video was stupid, you are absolutely correct. The man in the video is Martin Bryant, who despite being 28 years old during the interrogation, had an IQ of 66, equivalent to that of an 11-year-old. His actions, however, were not as innocent. On April 26, 1996, Bryant would arrive at Port Arthur and carry out the deadliest massacre in modern Australian history, leaving 35 deceased and 23 others injured. Many believe that his actions were for attention and notoriety, inspired by previous massacres. A neighbor of Bryant said that he allegedly told him that he'll do something that would make everyone remember him. Others believe that his motive was to kill the couple, David and Noeline Martin. Bryant blamed the couple and believed that they were the reason for his father's depression, which ended up with him taking his own life. After his capture, he was very curious about the total death count and seemed impressed by the number. Australia's most heinous man was given 35 life sentences and 1,652 years in prison.
Including the people at sea state, 35. How many people injured? Many? Well, approximately 20. What, seriously or not?
Alright, here are some movies that have scared the shit out of me and I will never stop recommending them. But be warned, because some of these movies are very violent, very creepy, and just overall like, what the fuck am I watching type of films. But as always, let's just fucking jump right into it. First up, let's talk about the movie Baskin. This is a 2015 Turkish horror film about 5 policemen who are responding to a distress call coming from an abandoned building. And when they get to the abandoned building, they go inside, and the more that they inspect this building, the more they realize they're entering the literal mouth of hell. The reason this movie freaked me out so much was its overall visuals, but honestly, like, the third act is just so, like, disturbing, and it just makes me feel really gross and weird inside. Like, this movie, I'm not gonna lie, did give me nightmares for a few nights after watching it. If you would like to check this one out, here's the list of where it's currently streaming. Next up, let's talk about The Sadness. This is a Taiwanese horror film about a virus that breaks out, and this virus basically causes people to act out on their most intrusive and like violent thoughts. This movie follows a couple who are trying to reunite amongst the fucking mayhem that's going on. The reason that this movie freaked me out was mainly this dude on the very top. Like, he just freaked me the fuck out. This guy just gave me really creepy and like pervy vibes, and he has this like maniacal laugh that just like really freaked me out. Like, I would not want to be chased by this dude like whatsoever. Trigger warning though, there is an essay scene, and all I'm gonna say is it involves an eye socket. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But also be warned, this movie is extremely bloody and extremely gory. It's honestly one of the most goriest films that I've seen. And if you'd like to check this one out, here's the list of where this one is currently streaming. Next up is the movie The Similars. This is a Mexican horror film about a group of people in the 1960s who get stuck at a bus station during a horrible freak rainstorm. One by one, each person falls victim to a very unusual seizure, and when they come out of the seizure, they all have the same face of one man that's at the bus station. And they all start to notice that even like on the magazines and posters at the bus station, all the people on it have the same face of this man. The reason this movie freaked me out so much was because it's very like Twilight Zone-y. Like, things are happening in this movie that should not be happening, but they are happening. And it's just very like, what the fuck? You could almost categorize this movie as a cosmic horror film, which is like my favorite subgenre of horror. I guess you can kind of say this really does freak me out because it's kind of like the fear of the unknown. Like, we don't know why this shit's going down, but it's going down. And if you would like to check this one out, here's where this one is currently streaming. And as always, if you guys have seen any of these movies, please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments.